Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for getting on the call tonight. I really appreciate having these opportunities for everyone to get together, and um, I really appreciate your time. So I'll go ahead with that and start. So tonight our call will be focusing on the importance of learning the fundamentals of conducting a focus meeting. Before we begin with our speakers, I would just like to go over a few basic reminders about why focus meetings have a place in a judge's preparation for a competition. As judges, we use this time to become unified as a panel. We look deeper into our focus of an event and the key factors with which we base our decisions on. We need to remember this is not the time for each individual judge to tell us how they will be judging the event, but rather decide as a unified group how we will be approaching the judging in this event so that we are not faced with scores and placements all over the board. We need to train our eyes to see the values and deficiencies the same, always reminding ourselves what the event focus is. We need to be confident with our CBTF focuses. I am so excited for our first speaker tonight, Jackie Stewart. The reason tonight I asked Jackie to speak for us is because she represents judges across the world and gives us an opportunity to hear her speak about this subject. We all might not have a chance to hear within our country's competition season. So with that, I welcome Jackie Stewart.
Hi, Amy. I'd like to thank you and the CBTF for inviting me to share some information regarding focus meetings. And also, I'd like to say hello to all my Canadian friends who may be listening in today. Focus meetings are a vehicle that we use to get our judges thinking about things before they go out to judge an event. So I'm going to give you a few tips or things that I have observed that I thought worked well in focus meetings from people I've watched to give them, and some things that have worked for me when I've done them myself. First of all, you're usually given a specific assignment, an event or whatever, and you're usually given a specific amount of time in which to present it. So I have found that usually 30 minutes is what you're allotted. So you have to be very selective in whatever it is that you're going to present as material. So if you want to present material and have them practice judge, and you only have 30 minutes, then you're probably, and you're going to have some dialogue, whatever it is you're going to present, you probably have maybe 15 minutes. So some specific things I would say to you is, if the subject, whatever the subject matter is, select at the most 3 things that you want to focus on. For example, let's say that you have been assigned to do a focus meeting on the pairs event. So some of the things that you could do is you could show the role models, talk about those. And that might be a good idea if the role models are new. Just create some dialogue, talk about each of them, so that people kind of identify those a little stronger in their minds before you do your practice judging. Another thing you could do is just pick some things regarding pairs that you'd like to talk about. A few years ago, I did a pairs focus, and one of the things that I noticed that was becoming a trend was layering of bodies, wrapping the bodies around each other, doing all kinds of things with the bodies in different positions that created a lot of visual effect. And we hadn't really talked about that in any of our focus meetings, but I thought it was an area of design and composition and perhaps musicality that needed to be addressed. So I used that as a focus for my my pairs focus. I used that as a real point to make people think about. So you could use that I use that as an underlying theme around design and composition for pairs. And you can always use 5 or 6 slides with your presentation to support what you're saying, and then some video clips to also do that. And I think those kinds of things really drive things home. And another thing that I try to utilize is humor when I'm doing a presentation, because I think that kind of relaxes people and puts them in a good frame of mind and in a positive way to receive whatever information it is you're going to use. Then, after I've done that, and if I'm going to do some practice judging with it, I'm going to try to pick a couple of examples that utilize whatever it is that I was talking about in my focus to kind of support that all the way through. And in the end, your 30 minutes is going to be up in no time, and I think that it's very important that you have an organized structure for your focus, have some slides or videos to support whatever it is you're going to talk about to make an effective point in a pretty quick way. And as a result of that, you're not going to get into a lot of depth in a focus meeting, but you can make an effective point in a short amount of time. The other thing that I use sometimes in focus as a area for reference material is the manual. There's a lot of good material in the manual. Take some of that out, put it in a slide, and a lot of times before you do an event, if you just look through the manual, on that event, you're going to find some things in there that maybe haven't been covered in a while that you think are important or valid, and use those to help support whatever it is you're going to talk about. What I like about focus meetings is that there's so much material that you can draw from. So go out of your way to work at a focus, to create some interest in it in a way that it hasn't been presented before, and then in your country you can utilize that as reference material in workshops, in other presentations. So there's a lot of stuff out there to use, a lot of good subject matter. The other thing I was going to say is one of the most important things I was ever told about giving a speech is tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So it's important to reinforce whatever it is you want to talk about and tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Wrap it up. Stay on track and be positive, be energetic, be involved, and invite other people to contribute in your focus and in the dialogue, and that creates more dynamics in your focus meetings too. Thanks again. Talk to you later.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jackie, for your wisdom. What I'm going to do is take the information she just provided to us, and we're going to go over it again in slide format. So Jackie's first and main point was that focus meetings are the vehicle we use to get our judges thinking about the important points of an event. Her tips are: take a look at the time allotment you have for your presentation. Be selective about the material you're going to present. If you're going to practice judge in your presentation, keep your dialogue to roughly a 15-minute time frame. What should your dialogue include? Each event presented, pick a maximum of 3 things to talk about. For example, speaking about pairs, your 3 things could be the new role models, design and leveling quality, visual effect of the bodies. Continuation of what should your dialogue include. Back up your material with slides, videos, or other interactions with your judges. Make sure to pick examples that support your point. Use humor. Use it to help your judges relax. Make sure your point is effective by staying on task. Use materials such as the judge's manual to draw from for ideas of conversation. Go out of your way to create interest and provide new knowledge to your colleagues. Final thoughts. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. I can't quite say it in as great of accent as Jackie did, but make sure you're reinforcing your material. So moving on to our next portion of the webinar, our next speaker is no stranger to our Canadian judges. A talented lady who is well known for being a leader in the judging community. It's our pleasure to have Sherry Carter tonight to share her thoughts and experiences. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me. I would also like to thank the Canadian Baton Twirling Federation for this opportunity. I think it's great that our countries are able to share material, and it's just a win-win situation, I believe. I would also like to thank just all of the participants. I enjoy coming, judging with you, and the opportunity to share knowledge is always a pleasure. I've been in my share of focus meetings. I've sat in on them. I've had some memorable moments that have stuck with me for years. I think some of the top focus meetings have been given by people from your country as well as ours, and some that just stick out in my mind that really follow the guidelines that Jackie has already specified. You know, Dale White, I think, is one of the premier speakers. He's able to drive a point home and stick in your mind. And I will never forget his focus meeting he did. I believe it was at a World Championship. I can't remember exactly where. I just know that he was talking about building on a foundation of your skills, and it's similar to like building a home, and it serves as a blueprint. And then he had a photograph of different homes, you know, and how they're decorated interiorly, and you know, some very articulate and then some very minimal. And he equated that to how you feel the phrasing of musicality in a freestyle, and that has always stuck to me. And he goes, just like a good interior decorator, you know, it has to have a theme, have some consistency in what it's projecting to be make sense in design, and so too in the selection of what we put into our freestyle. So that always has stayed in my mind. Jackie referred to really one of the most memorable focus meetings I've ever sat in on pairs, and that was her slide presentation on sculpting of forms. And it, to this day, is I can see just in my mind before I even judge that event just different qualities of what we see in the pair event. I think that everyone has ways of getting their points across. The thing is not to overload and to know your audience. I believe that it's really imperative, you know, who in the panel are they really seasoned? Is there some that it's kind of new to them? You know, you want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. It's not to shell shock them and then send them into the arena to judge. It's just like, to me, I think our focus for us is just like how we prepare an athlete to put them onto the floor. And I think that you don't want to overload them. You want to build up their confidence, and you just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and that they feel as great as possible and know that they have done everything in their part to be ready to evaluate. So those are some of my points. Kathy Forsyth has done some amazing focus meetings when it comes to different events. She's strong in many areas, and one thing that she did in using video is that on the monitor she covered and this was for our strutting event. And so she covered the top half of the performance, so all you're looking at is at the lower body to see how intricate and if it was repetitive, and it truly made you analyze that quality of our event, and that has always been a memorable focus. And like I said, I've sat in hundreds, I've given a few of myself, some that have bombed and some that have been, I thought, spot on. But what and I don't know if it's because I've taught for so many years in the classroom, but I really feel that you have to know your audience, you have to engage them right away and make them feel comfortable to ask a question if they need to ask a question, and a lot of time for that to happen. But as we mentioned, usually focus meetings are 30 minutes, and it's 15-minute dialogue of just hitting the high points, and then giving them an opportunity. And in selecting those items to evaluate, to me, I think it should be clear cut, and you are solid on analyzing them, and it's not a bad idea. I thought working with Jeff on doing the short program focus, I don't know, a couple years ago, or maybe it was I don't even know how. Time is not of essence, but doing the voiceover on one example of a short program, I think that was a good training for myself in regards to how my eye is trained to watch, because the event is so fast, and you can't rely on judging tools that often we use in other events, and you really have to know your scale. You have to know the order of and the counts for each of those elements. So I really appreciated what Jeff had done in allowing that, and I thought that was really effective, and then allowed a sample where they actually do practice judge, and I do believe that that's important. And but if it can be one that can solidify and not really create a lot of, it's really not a workshop situation, it's to get everybody, as Amy mentioned earlier, on the same page and ready and confident to go and judge. So I hope these things help. There was one other that, well, there's many, but I did want to mention, I thought Crystal Mignoni did a great focus a couple years ago about pairs. And I don't know if it's because I feel like pairs is one of my, always feel not as comfortable judging pairs. I don't know why. I feel like now a little bit more, but I think that she mentioned how you can analyze their demand of what they're doing if you would imagine that a string is attached to each one of them, and that how many times the string crosses, and almost creating a ball of yarn. If that happens, then the intricacy and demand of their exchange work and floor pattern is of high demand, and at the same time also incorporating the music. Of course, it has to be music driven, but I thought that was a great point, and I really, in analyzing exchange work, that comes to mind for me. I hope these things help. I think that you do have to be selective. You have to keep it simple and not to overload your audience and your peers when you're sitting down to judge, and keep it on a very uplifting environment. And as Jackie mentioned, a little humor doesn't hurt. I think it's a time to get a little bit, excuse me, I'm in my office, squeaky door, get a little bit of nerves out, and just so that you're comfortable when you do go out on the in the arena to evaluate and judge. That's all I have. I hope that's helpful. I would love to share. I do also stress one other thing, in that oftentimes focus meetings is a time where you can give some judging aids. For example, I have several that Dale has done in the past. One for team that I keep. It's almost like a crutch for me when I'm judging teams. And he also another one that he's done for freestyle. I think anything that helps and makes you feel comfortable, whether you look at it or not, you have it there with you, and you can use it if you need it at that time. So again, thank you, Amy, for this opportunity. I hope I haven't talked too long, or and I hope that it has been beneficial. I do know that we're kind of on a time frame here, and you probably want to open it up for questions. So at that time, I can turn it over back to Amy.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Just after listening to what you're saying, I think one of the main points that I took out from that is we need to make sure that we're remembering to keep our presentations memorable, so that you know, the next time we have one of these calls or the next group comes in, they can say, I remember so-and-so's meeting. They did this, they did this, they did this. So when we go into this competition season and you know, you have a focus meeting to give or a presentation, try and make sure that you're making something of your presentation memorable, that you can have people always remember and take away from, and when they, you know, go to a different competition, they can pass on that unique experience that you provided to them. I just wanted to say before I open it up to questions and comments is, as your CBTF judges rep, I'm really trying to give each judge the opportunity to learn from the world level as well as our neighbors from the United States, so that we can all see the global focus and feel like we are part of trolling around the world. So with that, let's talk. Questions, comments, discussion. This is your time to speak your mind.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, perfect.
It's Tanya. With all the new changes we have in CBTF this year, not only in our pre-events, we've got changes within short program, the pairs role models, all of them. What do you think are maybe the three most important ones we should focus on in the meeting? Hopefully knowing that our judges are already reviewed and knowledgeable and ready to go. What would you think would be the top three to make sure we mention?
I think that definitely depends on when in the competition season you're going to be giving the focus meeting, whether it's just a local competition. I think you want to focus on maybe an event in each area. So maybe you want to talk about a leveled event, you want to talk about an individual event, and you want to talk about a group event. So you're kind of covering everything, you know, not every event, but you're covering something in each area. When you get to more of a national or provincial meeting, I think that it definitely, you know, the meetings get longer, so you're able to get more in depth and talk about each event. I think, you know, a lot of the stuff we will be talking about this year, you know, are the changes, new role models, you know, different focuses, getting back to focuses that we maybe have kind of put aside for a couple of years. So I think it's really just based upon what time of the year that you're going to give the meeting, what events you're offering, and you know, what you as a judge would like to present to your panel, like what you're seeing as pressing issues or things that maybe you think that need more clarification. That's really based upon, you know, you. That's your time to make those decisions. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it's good.
Tanya, I'd just like to comment on what you said. I think a big factor in it is what Amy was saying about when it is in the year. So you had the first competition in Ontario on the weekend. So
Yes.
that was probably the first time that most of the judges had been judging since the previous year. So I think that in itself, that focus meeting probably should have been really zeroing in on the areas that were new. And
yeah, and it was.
And
it
that's
was.
what probably did. But there, of course, then there's no real reason to do that at the Ontario's. So
Right.
I think that I think that idea of kind of scripting it throughout the season and looking at when your competition is, I think it's important to look at when it is and then decide from there what it is that you have to be talking about it. And maybe by the end of the season, you would hope that maybe it'd be more of an opportunity to share as opposed to or look deeper or question some of the other things that we often don't get to do within our provinces because we have had some time together.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, ours on the weekend went great. Kyla did an awesome job presenting all the new things that we would be seeing that day. Had a great write-up and email and everything to everyone, so no, that was great. I was just checking for myself as I will be doing 2 provincial focus meetings this year, and Nova Scotia's being one of them, and that's a kind of a new thing for a lot of us. So I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right page to present the information at the time.
Well, Tanya, I wish you the best of luck with that, and I think that it's great that you're getting the opportunity to present twice. And if there's any other questions or any material that you want me to send to you, or even just have a back and forth conversation with you before you do that, I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
May I say something real quick? This is
Sure.
Sherry. I did also want to remind, and Ron is really great about this, in that in the past, when we have come to do focus meetings, the big drawback oftentimes is technology, and you really have to do your homework before, and as much as you plan, and if you're using things from YouTube, I'm a big YouTube person, I have a YouTube channel, I like to have access to that, but internet isn't always available. So whatever clips or whatever you're showing, if it's a PowerPoint, a Prezi, or any type of format that you're presenting your material, and any video clips, that you download them, have them accessible on your computer so that there is no downtime. There's still always downtime because you have to hook up and make sure that all of the technology as far as projector, all of that stuff is ready to go. So those are always, whoever is the first presenter in a string of topics in a focus time frame, usually at trials, or that's always the biggest hiccup, I guess I should say, and sometimes we try to be like 2 hours ahead so that we get that taken care of, and so that no one else will have that problem. So I do want to remind you that that's always a good rule of thumb to have, so that problems don't arise and get you where you're having to select and affect your portion of the presentation.
That's a really good point, Sherry. So would anyone else like to share, past experiences, something that's really worked? I don't know, Kyla, after doing the focus meeting on the weekend, is there anything that you thought went over really well that you want to share with us that might be helpful for anyone giving an upcoming focus meeting?
Well, yesterday when we had our focus meeting, it was again Ontario's first focus meeting, or first competition, but I do believe a lot of us had already previously judged at other competitions across the province and or across the country. So I pretty much just wanted to take a few ideas that we had talked about previous other ones and kind of focus in a little bit more in detail. So I found that it was a little bit easier considering we didn't have a lot, like we had our 30 minutes, but we wanted to make sure that we were on time as we had another scheduled event in after us. So I wrote up a list of points for our judges to think about throughout the day while they were judging, and gave it out to them. And this, I personally think, helped them just to remember a few things as the day went on, maybe that they might have forgotten after the focus meeting. But I did find that helped just, for myself too, to keep myself organized in the morning when I did talk about a few things. And I just wanted to, more or less, because it was our first competition, focus in on comments that, for the athletes, first competition, we wanted to make sure that we had as many as possible. Each judge had a clerk. And so that was kind of my focus for that is, make sure that you're honing in on certain parts of the routines that may be of interest across the country that we've talked about and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what I did yesterday, and it seemed to work well. So maybe that's something somebody else might find works well for them as well.
That's really great, Kyla. I would actually, I'm sure all the provincial reps would love, I don't know if you would mind sharing that tool, because I think that is really useful, and it's always good to have something just to refer to. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that page, and I can send it out to the reps, you can email me after and let me know, but I think that sounds like a really good and useful tool that I think all the judges really use going into their first competition for the season.
For sure, not a problem. I'll get that out to you.
Thank you. So anybody else? Oh, perfect.
Yes, Amy?
Yes.
Ron, I just wanted to point out for the people who are going to be doing some head judges at a provincial, and there's a longer time usually given if it's a full one for updating our judges. We do have a library now, and it's primarily now on the Canadian events, like our solo and two baton and three baton and medley and solo dance. We haven't got a full one yet. We're just starting to work on the world events. But if you're doing those things and you need some links for those focus meetings in those provincials, let us know, because we do have that we could send you a few that will help you for videos to show in the practical aspect of the focus meeting. So you could contact me and I could send you some of those things if you needed them.
That's perfect. And, that's another really useful tool.
Right, and then the other thing is just to remind about judge what you see. I think that needs to be brought up even at open competitions. I did a webinar on that a while ago, and we sent that information out as well, but just pointed out because our solos, for instance, well, all our events are moved up by scoring, and so we've had coaches in the past that have concerns that they're at the cusp of moving up, whatever, say it's from novice to intermediate, and they're continually getting just a score slightly lower than what would move them up to the next level. But then on the other way, it could be the other way too, that they had just moved up a week or two ago in a competition and did a perfect program, no drops and everything very fluid and so forth, and that's why they were moved up. And then have a poor performance the next time, it's possibility that they wouldn't be at that same score. So we do have those things to move up, but it's not set that you have to. If, for instance, if they were in the BN, they don't have to get the 4 if they had a poor performance. Judge them by what you see that day, not what has been done in previously from either another judge or when a different movement and have moved them up, or vice versa. Just to point those things out, and we have a number of the U.S. Judges coming up now to remind them again about the difference between our scores, because we do move them up by scores, and in advance, if the competition director could maybe even send or give the head judge the responsibility to send that information to a U.S. judge coming in to remind them about that solo event is in our scoring to what the role models are for them.
That's an excellent point, Ron. And I think that the CBTF's website gives so much material, like you said, the library and of videos, and because some of your events are different than ours, that's always a great tool to refresh and to prepare before judging those events. In the U.S., on USTA website, we have Knowledge Central, which is a great thing to go to from any country. We have a lot of judging tools, judging scenarios, articles, and I just think it's another good tool to look for and refresh yourself before judging. The WBTF website has all of the new role models under their video resource. Of course, you have to log in, but I encourage everyone who's judging a provincial or your Canadians trials and or the U.S. trials or world, and that's going to be a great tool to go and really study thoroughly before even attending the focus meetings. I think you have to do your homework before you lead a focus meeting, know that material inside and out, and then be selective of what you're, and really the changes, the things that are new needs to be definitely addressed and pointed out. And I think even with these role models, that if they can be sent the link ahead of time before you have the actual focus, so that they can start preparing, because it's a lot of new information. So and just familiarize yourself. Not that it's different, it's just the scores are the same. It's a little bit more up to date, and I do like that. I hope that helps.
As you're talking, I'm writing down right now that maybe something we could do as a country, since we are inviting people internationally and start judging our competitions, is maybe come up with kind of a package, a welcome package per se. Say, oh, you're coming to our country, and send some of those videos, send, our scores, just have it all compiled into one place. And maybe that's something I can talk to Ron and Jeff about, that we can maybe put together to have everything in one place and easy for the international judges to get a hold of.
Yes, just one thing, Amy, just remember that any of the new Americans coming in, they have to have an examination, so for certification for Medley. That's the only one that is different that they don't have. So in the past, any of the Americans that have come up, we've asked them in advance to do that.
Right, so, but our solo scoring and our freestyle scoring is different from the WBTF scale.
Yes, and that would be sent to the unit. Right. Yeah, for sure.
So kind of finally with that, I want to tell you that in March, I'll be speaking with the provincial reps about providing judges with a feedback sheet to give to the judges after the completion of a focus meeting to help you find out what is working, what isn't, how you can improve for the next time. I mean, it's not something that you have to use. I'm just going to speak to them about putting that together and having it as a tool that if you want to use it, that you're welcome to. And I hope tonight has been informative and helpful for all of you. My goal is to judge have the opportunity to be a head judge in their career and use the knowledge that I hope you gained tonight to help you put that together. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you to Jackie Stewart and Sherry Carter, our speakers, for taking the time to talk with us tonight. I want to thank all of you, the Canadian judges, for having the interest to increase your leadership knowledge in this area. And I want to thank Jeff Johnson, our CBTF Technical Chair, for helping me make this webinar possible. And with that, I wish you all a good night and a great week ahead of you. Good night. Thank you.